The children don't know it yet, but I'm going to be asking them to fill this half-gallon jar up with dandelion heads. We made short work of picking our dandelions, and we put them in this jar, this half-gallon jar, and then I filled it with oil. I'm using non-GMO canola oil. And I generally use that at about 20% of my total oils in my soap, so I make pretty large batches, well, 10 pounds. To some people that's nothing. But this, I want it to at least make up, the infused dandelions to make up about 20%. Now, this is a fresh infusion. And with fresh infusions, you don't want to let it sit too long. So I'm going to be using this within 24 hours. I'm going to be having it sit in the sun and kind of do a gentle heat infusion. If you let it sit too long, the moisture that was in the flowers will start to probably have some sort of bacteria grow, and your oil may get cloudy, and we don't want that. So of course you wouldn't do this with anything but soap. If you're making a salve or something, you definitely want to start with dried flowers for your infusions. But because it's soap, the alkalinity of the soap will prohibit the growth of any bacteria that you may get. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to let this sit in the sun for the rest of the day. I mean, we're in northern Maine, so right now it's like 50 degrees, so this is pretty nice. I actually still have a pile of snow that's not melted yet, but anyway, I digress. So we're going to go ahead and let that sit. Probably tonight when the sun goes down, I'll probably bring it in and I'll show you how I do a gentle, like, hot water infusion, just so that if it happens to be a cloudy day, you can see a secondary or alternate way to do a gentle heat infusion with fresh infusions. So we'll see you in a bit. And just in case, if you didn't believe me about the snow, this is the snow, and here's the dandelions I had just picked. It is May 24. So I'm going to heat infuse this a little more. It didn't quite get too sunny or hot today, so I'm going to do it in the oven. I turned my oven on to 170 degrees, and then I'm just going to turn it off and just let it sit overnight in the heat. So it won't overheat, and I've put it in my cast iron cookware there, so in case it were to topple over, it'd still be upright. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, it's been almost 24 hours, not quite, and this is our infused dandelions. And I'm going to show you how I strain them. So what I have is a glass bowl, doesn't have to be glass, whatever, a colander, and then I use these flour sack cloths. You could also use cheesecloth, but I prefer to use the flour sack. It has a much finer weave, and so it's a little more finer in its sifting abilities or straining ability, so that, I don't know, I just prefer it. And also because I don't have cheesecloth, I just happen to have this. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump this right into dump it all right into the flour sack cloth. I didn't dump it all yet, I didn't want to overdo it. But then I just gather up the cloth and let it strain. And the oil looks pretty yellow, which is nice because I want to make a yellow soap, but without adding any colorants aside from the dandelions. So last year, this is what I did, and I got a really nice yellow soap. We'll see if that happens again. I'll try to duplicate it. So now I'm actually going to squeeze it. I want to get every last drop of dandelion goodness. So this is the oils that I have melted for our dandelion soap. The dandelion oil, infused oil that's in here is at 23.5% of total oils. There's a couple chunks of unmelted butters, but it'll melt. So I'm gonna add the lye water. And I should probably tell you that I'm soaping quite hot today. Soaping hot is kind of my comfort zone. Lately I've been soaping cool and trying to keep a thin trace for swirly designs, but today this is going to be a solid color. We're going to hope for it to be yellow without adding any colorants other than the dandelions, and also the essential oils that we are going to add may contribute somewhat to the yellow color. So we're going to go ahead and blend this, and I'm hoping to blend this to a pretty thick trace because I also want to try to do a textured top. So now I'm just going to go ahead and pour it in my molds hopefully without making a mess. But it's a beautiful yellow, lemon yellow color, and that's coming from the dandelion, the infused fresh dandelion flowers. Some of the yellow may also be attributed to the essential oils I used, which was Litsea, lemon and lemongrass, and also a little bit of benzoin. Benzoin gives it a really nice scent. It kind of makes it a sweeter lemon scent, more than like a crisp lemon. And I just love it. But when using benzoin, you need to make sure you're following the proper usage rates, which I believe is 0.6%, which is very, very tiny amount. So it doesn't take much. It's a skin sensitizer. So that's why you want to be careful with benzoin. It's easy to add too much just because the usage rate is so low. It's been a few minutes. I just sort of rearranged things. I'm gonna do a scallop top with my trusty baby spoon, and for some reason I actually prefer using the handle. Not that you have to. To just give it a twist and flip and twist. I just love soaping hot, especially with essential oils that behave nicely. Lemon and grass and Litsea work well for me. One essential oil that's given me problems in the past is peppermint. It always seems to rice on me. So this will be our first textured loaf. And I'll get that out of the way. I can zoom in. What do you know? And I will be gelling this soap. I want to try to get as vibrant of a yellow as I can. And I just love gelling. I gel everything. It comes in a loaf. Except bread. Just joking. Good enough for that. It's so creamy. Right now it looks like vanilla pudding and smells like lemon pudding. find these silicone molds, they do bend an awful lot. It's what I started soaping with, was these molds, and I do like them. So when I put them in the oven, I put them up against the side of the wall of the stove, and then I put like these two next to each other so that their sides are straight, and then I do put a cast iron, a big heavy pan on the side that's not on the wall of the oven, to just sort of keep them straight, because I do have a pet peeve of bowed out soap. Which it still ends up being bowed and on the sides a lot for me, but I don't like it. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the oven at 170 degrees, and I'm going to turn my oven off. I don't think it's going to take long to gel this, because it's already, as I said, it's hot. I just took the soap out of the oven. As you can see, it is gelling. Look how nice, deep, dark yellow, and fluorescent type, and then on the edges it's still kind of the butter yellow, but that will soon gel. And apparently my oven doesn't heat evenly, because this one was towards the front and this one was towards the back. But anyway, this one is starting to gel just down the center, but still opaque on the sides. But we're going to take it out and we're going to just let it sit on the stove, and it will finish gelling. And then the other two, my smaller loaves, that's what I meant when I set one against the side and then kind of support it with a heavy pot so that they don't bow. So our soap is done, and it turned out beautiful. It's a beautiful, like, butter yellow. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut it into my bars. This is how I stamp my soap. I've just finished cutting it, and it's ready to stamp. I find if you gel it, it's ready to stamp much sooner. And this is made with, a lot of times I find that soap's made with palm oil. Stamp really nice. You don't need to use the saran wrap over the soap or anything. It's not sticky, it stamps really good. And you know, palm oil, of course, is debatable and controversial. I do try to get as much, from a reputable supplier, and it is sustainably sourced, if there is even such a thing as that. But I don't use it in all my soaps, just some of them. But anyway, so I'm just saying that it stamps really good as compared to my lard soaps, is what I'm trying to say.